We are joined once again by Ray Kelly, my father, longest-serving police commissioner in the history of law enforcement here in New York. And a lot of folks don't know this, but he had a very big job in federal government in the 1990s. He was the Undersecretary of Treasury for enforcement, for law enforcement. And the Secret Service, ATF, and Customs, three agencies, reported to him as Undersecretary. The only boss my father had technically was the Treasury Secretary. Yet 28-year-old kids from the White House tried to meddle, and they learned their lesson real quick, didn't they? Ray Kelly, how are you?
I'm good, great, thanks.
Hey, actually, can you describe that for us before we get into the Secret Service stuff? That in Washington, D.C., you know, you're a cabinet secretary, you're an undersecretary, and it's a cool job, and it does have a lot of clout. But you just might find yourself answering to some 28-year-old punk who works in the White House, right?
Yeah, through the years, the White House has amassed tremendous power and actually makes decisions that should really be made by agencies. And so many of for instance, the promotion of military people to generals is almost totally controlled by the White House. You wouldn't think that. You would think that perhaps the Pentagon is doing it, but no, those final decisions come from the White House. And you're right; they're all political people, and it all has to do with the perceived success or failure of the administration.
I want to come back to that because it raises some issues that I want to discuss with you further. But coming back to the Secret Service and what we saw today out of Rowe, I still don't know how to say his name, R-O-W-E, the new acting director, who sounded to me, you know, he put on a good show, like I want accountability, but then he reverted to what I think too many bureaucrats do, defending the bureaucracy at all costs. What did you see today from that hearing?
Well, it's a tough job, and you have to expect someone who was in the agency for 25 years to be defensive, to be protective of the agency. All in all, I thought he was pretty forthcoming, but it's not an easy job. And, you know, the Senate was out for blood, and they saw him in the way. But I thought he was okay. A question I had is, you know, you mentioned the job that I had. That comes from the Warren Commission, if you recall. After the assassination of President Kennedy, one of their recommendations was to create the position of, actually in those days, Assistant Secretary in the Treasury Department to oversee the Secret Service. That job was later elevated to Undersecretary. And then under the Bush II administration, the job was transferred from the Treasury Department, which at that time had about 40% of all federal law enforcement in it, to the Homeland Security. Now, I don't know. I can't find anything about Homeland Security supervising the service, but I think it's a very valid question that I don't believe has come up. What was Homeland Security's role? People have talked about the possible political aspect of the size of the president's detail.
Yeah.
So I think it's an area that should be looked at.
Well, I saw him.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I saw him playing games in terms of his answers, and they were bureaucratic. And I guess if you're a bureaucrat, you got to play the bureaucratic game. But the stakes seem so high right now. Hey, do me a favor, turn down the radio if you don't mind. I think I hear the radio. But I guess what I wanted to ask you then is, he said that what did he say? That the state police, the local police, and the Secret Service are not on the same frequency and have no easy way to talk to each other, which to me is an abomination. I mean, and of course, it's always been that way. And to fix it would take, I don't know, millions of dollars and many, many months, he said, which sounds like I can see that in one respect, because everything the government does takes a long time and is, you know, over budget and late. But I also think it's something that could be fixed by sundown with Nextels or something like that. So can you take us through that? I'm just shocked that that's still the case. And oh, by the way, the Warren Commission said something else. There needs to be better coordination between the Secret Service and local police, on which the Secret Service does rely. So it's amazing, 60 plus years later, they haven't learned the lesson of Kennedy. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, what they do is put a local police officer with the local radio into their communications room. So under the theory that the local police will be on that frequency, Secret Service will be on their own frequency, and therefore information can be exchanged in that room. I think the Secret Service should provide radios or communications capability to local police, certainly snipers. By the way, I don't think the snipers should ever be from a local police agency. I mean, they have the ability to use deadly force. That should lie with the Secret Service and Secret Service personnel. But for years, they have relied on local agencies. And as we've talked about before, they're uneven, spotty as to the professionalism of local police agencies. And even when I was in this job in the Clinton administration, I thought there was an over-reliance on local police. But it's tough to turn that around because of the head count of the Secret Service. You just don't easily expand that. Now, maybe this terrible event will bring that about. More funding for Secret Service, more hires for Secret Service.
Hey, let me ask you this, though. I thought that two things. The Secret Service is plenty big, and they got plenty of money already. It seems like they're mishandling the resources they have because it's the federal government, and the federal government, to me, these days is inherently incompetent, too bureaucratic, too many restrictions. I mean, let's face it, when you were the NYPD commissioner, you were doing things that you never could have done as Undersecretary of the Treasury or a cabinet secretary for that matter, or a director of the CIA or even the FBI. Am I right? Didn't you have a hell of a lot more freedom because you were unconstrained by ludicrous bureaucrat? I mean, you had to follow the law and there was policy, but you didn't have to follow ludicrous bureaucratic procedure imposed by the deep state or whatever, right? You had a lot more freedom. Fair to say?
Yes, it's fair to say. And don't forget, Bloomberg administration came in 3.5 months after the catastrophic event of 9/11. So that fact provided a lot of leeway for the administration to do a whole lot of things that, as you say, probably in normal times would have been more difficult to do.
All right. Well, it's amazing we are where we are. I think President Trump's life is still very much in danger because of these holes and the inadequate explanations from the Secret Service, the lack of corrective action. Everybody still seems to be on the job and same duty. Charlie Kirk told me that he has hosted the president 3 times over the past couple of years, and the last time, security seems to be at its most lax, and that was just the other day. So I know he's not a law enforcement professional and an amateur, but that was an interesting assessment. And for all that horrible stuff that's been promulgated about President Trump by the government, clear and present danger to American democracy. He's not out of the woods yet, is he?
No, not at all. And, just common sense should have dictated that they get everything that they need in that detail. Because of the hatred, the vitriol that's been directed at him. He's not like any former president. I heard somebody say something maybe even today about some sort of formula for former president. That should all be thrown out the window when it comes to Trump.
Yeah, there's always a checklist. There's always a book. They can fall back on procedure. They can fall back on all this stuff. And at the end of the day, a lot of this procedure is contradicted, right? It's like, you can do this, but you can't do that. So everybody's stifled. And that whole thing about text messaging is fascinating. These guys were texting each other like crazy, but nobody was on the damn radio or could even get on the radio. It is a sick world right now, and we need a massive correction and a dose of, Jesus, in my opinion, but that's another conversation. Ray Kelly, my dad, Tell the people something good about me when I was a kid.
Oh, you were a terrific kid. You were athletic. You were smart. You were fascinated by things at a very early age. I remember you looking at the moon and talking about it when you were like 3 years old. So you were a terrific young man.
Yeah.
You're very proud of everything that you did. Remember you playing in Little League.
Yeah. Oh, Little League. Little League. And I remember you and Mom being there every step of the way. So thank you. You guys were great too. Thanks, Dad. Say hi to Mom. I'll be right back. Ray Kelly, everybody.
Greg Kelly.